So you've got 100K to replace your income of 4K a month using property as a vehicle to do that. What do? In this video, I'm going to share with you how you identify which is the right strategy for you to do, because there'll be a different path for everybody. And again, as I said, how you identify that. But before we get into that, if you're new to this channel, please smash that subscribe button, hit that like button. It really helps the algorithms, pushes out. My why is to live on my terms. My mission is to help as many people live on their terms using property and financial education as a vehicle to do that. So the more you smash away at that like and that share, the more this will spread this message out. I'm Harvey, I'm a remote property investor, and there is not one answer to this. There's not one route in to answering this question. There is a multiple routes that you could take in to get to that 4K target. So the thing you need to start with to find out what you should be doing individually, because it's going to be different for all of us. We've all got different circumstances. We've all got different time restraints. We've all got different family restraints. We've all got different skill restraints. We've all got different or benefits. You know, both of them can be restraints or benefits. It's going to be very different for all of us. So what I encourage anybody when they get into property or anything, in a career, business or anything, start off with your why. What is your why? What is your driven purpose behind why you want to do this? Don't start off with just the income. So many people think, I want 4K a month. What is going to give me that 4K a month? The ultimate, Tony Robbins says this, the ultimate failure is money success without fulfillment. And I promise you now, if you just drive to 4K a month and just do it in a way that you're not feeling fulfilled from that, that's not going to give you enjoyment without a shadow of a doubt. So it's really important to think about your reasonings right at the start. People say start with the end in mind. So start off by thinking to yourself, what is my why? What is my property why? Why am I getting into property? I noticed there was a mention of time. So many people get into property saying, I want financial freedom, I want time, I want to be able to live on my terms is my why, but I want to be able to live on my terms. And often they get into strategies that does the total opposite to that. It dives them in so deep that they no longer got any time. They're working harder than they ever did before, and sometimes for less money, you know, because it took on a whole heap of responsibilities. Especially in business, as business spaces happens all the time. So really think about your end why and why you want to get into this. So in property, as we're using property and talking about property as a vehicle to this 4K a month, there's some major strategies. There's lots of different strategies within property, like sourcing and all these different things. But there's active and passive incomes. There's nothing that's truly passive. So I don't want to get into this argument now about is this passive, is this not passive? Like, there is more passive forms of income than others. Everything you have to put a little bit of work towards, checking your bank accounts, blah, blah, blah. But let's move that argument aside for a second. There is more passive forms of income where you get recurring income each month, and there's active forms of income. So things like rent to rent, things like deal sourcing are active income. You have to go out and source them deals every single month to actively replenish that income. Things like rent to rent is active because you're managing the properties, you're in it. Where if you get any buy to lets or even self accommodation or HMOs and you get a manager to manage it, that's more passive. Although you still have to manage your manager, as I said, but we'll park that to the side, that discussion to another date. But you've got more passive forms of income and more active forms of income. So one of the what you have to look at is in property, there's different types, different ways to form that income. So even if you're sourcing, so putting sourcing aside from this for a second, because you can source land, you can. So at the top of this pyramid, basically, there's a few different ways of earning money from property, and sourcing, you can source all of these. So as I said, we'll shift the sourcing to one side. So you've got buy-to-lets, HMO, service accommodation, commercial conversions, and development. And I call this your wealth pyramid in property. So I feel you should build a really strong foundation, not for everybody, by the way, but most people should think about building their foundation really strong underneath. The most residual and passive form of income is single let properties. It gives you that really residual base, and it's less susceptible to market ups and downs, as long as you buy the right single let properties in the right locations. If you buy them central London, then they're not great properties. But again, buying the right style, similar again, if you bought a HMO for students and it wasn't an area of students, it's not really the right thing. So putting that aside, also single let property is a really good foundational base for all property portfolios. Portfolios are great to have a mixture. So by the way, as much as I love single let properties, I've got a mixture. So I've got HMOs, I've got service accommodation, done commercial conversion, tried doing a land development for my first deal, but that messed up because I was trying to go too far above. And this is why I talk about building a good foundation, because you don't only just bring a good foundation for a solid income and a good building your skills, you also build your courage along the way. But buy-to-lets is the slowest form. If you want to get 4K a month from buy-to-lets, that's going to take you a lot longer than it would, for example, doing SAs or HMOs. But SAs take a bit more skill. So there's a trade-off. Each level you go up, there's a trade-off. And I think in an ideal world, not everybody's circumstances, but in an ideal world, if you start off with your buy-to-lets, build up a bit of confidence, build up a bit of credibility, build up a bit of skill, build up a bit of network, then step up to your SAs and HMOs, which are a bit more complex in management, in development of them. SAs are not so much maybe, but definitely the HMOs, a bit more complex. You've got your foundation underneath, what you've built on, and then you can then, like, so if you start down here, and build that up, you jump up to this next level once you've skilled up. And think of it like a computer game. You don't start on level 5 or 10, it's too difficult. You start on level 1, build up your skill, and by the time you get to level 10, you've gradually built into that skill. One of the bugbears of mine is people say, look, I started off, people can, by the way, start straight on HMOs, people can start on commercial conversions, and people can start on developments, but each further level you go up, there's going to be a trade-off, and that trade-off is going to be largely stress, you know. So the further you go up, the more the trade-off is going to be that you're going to endure more stress getting this done. There is exceptions and rules. You might be a builder already, so the build side of these as you go further up generally is the thing that's going to be much more difficult to navigate, and you want to build into the skill to be able to do that. But if you're a builder, if you're a quantitative surveyor, you know, or something that you've got transferable skills, that's absolutely fine. You can jump up this ladder. And even if you haven't got them transferable skills, you can jump up the ladder, but set from day one that you take it. Not only is your skill, is your risk levels going up dramatically, because the bigger the development, the more it's fraught with risks that it could go wrong and it could wipe you out. Because usually, like, to do HMOs today, if you want to do momentum investing, which you would have to do, which is the buy, refurbish, remortgage strategy, which you have to do to generate 100K into 4K a month, you couldn't just do that for one deal. So you'd have to recycle your money out. To do that with HMOs, you really have got to transform them into like proper purpose HMOs. So the purpose of that building is just a HMO, and you couldn't use it as a single let. And then you get the commercial valuations to really give you the momentum. But in most cases, the commercial valuations at the moment, I'm not sure if there's any lenders out there, any brokers might be able to help me with this, but in most cases at the moment, commercial valuations are taking 2 years of operating costs to be able to get that valuation. It was about a year. Most of them since COVID has upped that to 2. They might be bringing that back down again as the appetite for lending is increasing again. But it was definitely 2 years a little while ago, but double check that with a broker to see if we still stand there. But these sort of bigger development stuffs also take a bit longer time to finish out, also can be fraught with a few mistakes. So the idea of building up a foundation, say you built 5 buy-to-lets and it was earning you £300 a property, so you're getting 369, 1,200 pound a month. So if you had bridging, which you need to do to develop a HMO, because a lot of this you're buying cash, but 100K you're not going to do that, so you need to do that on bridging. If you had bridging, for example, and something went wrong, you've got this down here that could service your debt. So what a lot of people do with bridging is get stuck in bridging. So they underestimate the level of the refurb, they underestimate the business of a builder, they underestimate the skill of the builder sometimes because they're not experienced with that and they're not built at a network, and things go wrong, and then you might get stuck on a bridging product. But if you've got a good foundation here, that's paying for that. And similar again, once you've done your HMOs and your SAs, that will generate a bigger income, and that can then jump you up to then looking at commercial conversions, because again, commercial conversions will take a lot longer to develop out. You can do some on this MA and this permit development, but often you might be delving into plannings and it could be a long, like commercial conversions are typically like 2, it can even be 3 years before you realise your gain and your income from that, especially if you're doing these conversions to hold. So if you've got this income below here and you've got bridging, you've got things to navigate, you've got, like, sometimes when you're doing these things, there's extra tests and there's loads of things that come out of the woodwork if you're not experienced that adds to the cost of it, like QSs and soundproofing tests and parking surveys. So if you've got this income from these below, this then supports when these commercial conversions take a bit longer. But also, like the computer game, as I said, you've skilled up. Yes, some people can jump straight to that, absolutely. But as I said, you will trade off a lot of, usually a lot of stress if you've not got transferable skills. When I say about transferable skills, think of it like a boxer. Tyson Fury, I usually say Anthony Joshua, but Tyson Fury has just won his title fight just recently. If you took Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua and put him in a kickboxing ring or a UFC cage fighting ring, they will do well because they're naturally a fighter. So, or maybe they might not be to the top level, but they'd go in quite high at that level. Where if you took Anthony Joshua or Tyson Fury, as great of an athlete they are, and as elite they are in their sport, and you put them into a swimming pool with Michael Phelps, they would be rubbish because they've not got the transferable skills. We've all got innate abilities and skills. So you really have to think about that when you're picking your strategy, especially if you want to jump up this pyramid, which you can. And I've seen many people do, by the way, and I'm not saying you shouldn't, but just think about it. Don't just think of the rewards from this. Think about what you're trading off in between for that. And then right at the top, developments take a hell of a lot longer, take really a long time to realise. It could take years with the planning and blah, blah, blah. So, but if you've got this foundation and base and income coming underneath, you can jump up to this. So the major things in property or any business that drive you forward in a business, there's 4 major things that's going to drive you forward. So it's money, knowledge, network, and right in the middle, which is really important, is your time. So if you could have loads of money, loads of knowledge, and loads of network, but if you've not got the time to implement a commercial conversion, you're not going to do it. You know, you can't just magic time out. And again, if you've not got a strong enough network, so the network you're using at the moment might be stretched on the project you've got. So you can't just magic them up more hours and get your builders to do double the projects. You know, so time is the big factor that loads of people really underestimate. I was in a clubhouse room earlier on this year with Simon Zucci, and when he looks for JVs, he said one of the biggest things he's fell over with JVs is not their knowledge and not their knowledge, maybe not the money and not their skills, and skill and knowledge is in that same one. It's that they didn't have the time to implement what they're trying to do because they're already spinning so many plates. So really think about this triangle when you're going to think about, right, what am I going to do to get my 4K income? So if you think about these questions I've asked here, the power of your questions is the power of your results. If you think about these questions, think of this as a sliding scale. So put all these down, and I've added an extra one at the bottom here, is courage. Because one of the biggest failures of success is procrastination and not doing things. One of the biggest reasons you will procrastinate and not do things is because you're overwhelmed. A confused mind does nothing. There's a fantastic book. Let me see if I can find it here. It's by this guy. It's not this actual book, but it is by this guy called Sean Anker, and he wrote this book called The Happiness Advantage. And basically, if you read another book by a guy called James Clear, it's called Autonomic Habits, and they talk about success and what makes successful people successful, and it's not the knowledge alone, it's their ability to take action. But the way they do that is they build on habits. So they build on micro habits. So many people fail at just a simple thing at New Year's. Like, so many people will say, right, okay, New Year's resolution, I'm going to get fit, I'm going to go to the gym for an hour, I'm going to eat well, I'm going to give up sugar, I'm going to stop smoking, stop drinking, and they make the goal far too big. You've got to make micro goals and build on them, and you have to build up the momentum with that. It's the same, going back to like the boxing analogy. Look at Anthony Joshua. He won the gold medal in the Olympics, and they didn't put him in for a heavyweight title fight straight away. They built up his confidence and skill with some journeymen along the way. They didn't just chuck him straight in at the top, because what happens is if you go in too high, it can destroy your confidence. If you get too confused or you get too overwhelmed, you start just doubting yourself. You get that little voice going, I can't do this, this is too much, it's just not for me, and then people stop. Again, that's why when they set themselves a target of going to the gym for an hour every day, you find loads of excuses that you don't want to do an hour. In James Clear's Autonomic Habits and his philosophy behind it, he calls it the 2-minute rule, where he said, when you're building a new habit, aim to be able to complete that within 2 minutes. So basically, if you want to start getting fit, it might be just getting your shoes on and just walking up to the end of the road and back, or jogging to the end of the road and back, and saying, that's my target, as long as I can do it within 2 minutes. Often starting is the main thing. And then once you start, you build on the momentum from that with a positive chain of effects. So the biggest form of failure is your ability to actually take action. And the more confused your mind is, the less you're going to take action. That's why you want to bear this in mind. The lower you go down on this pyramid, it's not as sexy, it's not as income generating, but it is less overwhelming, and that is one of the biggest things that's going to slow you down. So when you think about all these questions, and as I said, I added courage into there. I'll put a big line underneath courage. Also going to put a line underneath time, because they're really important ones, because you could have everything else, but if you've not got time and you've not got the courage to do it, and your courage is basically your risk appetite as well, and your ability to push through fear and out your comfort zone. Some people can just do that naturally, and some people really have to work on that. So think about all of these levers. So if you think about it, let's say you was here on all of these, that you didn't have no time, you had no network, you had no money, you had no courage to push out your comfort zone, you'd have to be thinking more about starting a lot more simple. If you was more higher up on all of these questions, you could probably jump up a little bit more, especially if you've got this one, the courage. If you've got the courage and you've got the time to go at it, so go out there and raise finance and really go after it, then you might be able to jump up a little bit higher, a little bit quicker. But there's no one path. All of these paths here, by the way, will give you 4K a month if you stick at them long enough. The reason people fail is because they don't stick at things long enough. And one of the big reasons behind people not sticking at things long enough, as I said, is that confused mind, being overwhelmed, or mistakes happening. When a mistake happens, it robs you of your confidence. And then once you're robbed of your confidence, you just think, I can't do it. You know, so if you've got micro mistakes, learn, cut your teeth on them and build on them. That really sets you up. But it depends. As I said, you might be a quantity surveyor, builder already, or got a brother that's into property that can really support you, or you go and hire a really fantastic mentor that keeps you accountable and supports you step by step along the way. So vicariously, you're using his skill, knowledge and experience, these parts of here, vicariously from him. So I know it's probably not what some people want to hear. Some people want to hear just, yeah, do SA, do what's the name. As I said, the further you, well, kind of, the quicker ones are going to be the HMOs and SAs, but there's much more management and skill needed for this to deliver on these. This is not going to be quicker, but it's going to be the most lucrative. So when you go further up, but it's also fraught with the biggest amounts of risk. So really think about what your why is, what you're trying to get into it, what these are here, where you are on these levers. You know, you might be a blend, you might have a bit of money, you've got 100K, so you could be up here on money, but you might think, I've not got much time, I've not got much knowledge, but I'm about halfway with knowledge. Network, do you know network? What I mean by that is, do I know builders? Do I know architects? Do I know planning consultants? Because the further you go up here, you're going to need more of that involved with that, you know. So especially if you're doing the momentum investing with SAs, if you wanted to buy blocks and units and develop those, you definitely need a bit more of that. And again, courage is the big one. You could have all of these a 10 out of 10 if you haven't got the courage to press that button and you just analysis by paralysis with everything all the time, wait for that perfect scenario, then you want to be thinking about just building your skill on the lower stuff just to get that momentum going and skill up as you go along. So there's no one path. I hope you found that useful. Love to hear in the comments what you would do with this, what personally it is for you, what your thoughts are around this. It's like you usually get people who sell HMO calls tell you you've got to do HMOs, people who sell SA courses tell you you've got to do SAs, and vice versa, commercial conversions. But I don't tell anybody you've got to do one path. I try and find people to find their path and find the most logical one that's going to suit them in all the circumstances. So I hope you found it useful. Please do me a massive favour. Like on this, share this, engage on it. Really helps some algorithms push it out at the moment. They're being a little tiny bit restricted, and if you found that useful, please engage, like and share, because that really helps us out. My why is to live on my terms. My mission is to help as many people live on their terms using property as a vehicle, whether that's through education, portfolio building, or property management. So if you want any support from me, reach out to me, DM me if you want any guidance or anything like that. Really happy to help and support people. But remember, if you don't evolve your ideas, you're never going to live on your own terms. So evolve your ideas, live on your own terms, and have a fantastic day.